Welcome to this video. In previous video, we have seen how we can set up the Terraform into the Windows and in the Azure Cloud Shell. But before going to use the Terraform, we need to create the authentication channel where the Terraform can be authenticated to use the Azure. Let's see how the Terraform can be authenticated. To follow the authentication, we will create a service principal. So let's see how we can establish a authenticated channel from Terraform to Azure. Currently, Terraform only supports authenticating to Azure via the Azure CLI. Authenticating using Azure PowerShell is not supported, but you can use the PowerShell module. To use the PowerShell module, you first need to authenticate to Azure using the Azure CLI. For authentication purpose, we will use the Azure CLI. Terraform support a number of the different methods for authenticating to Azure. Here you can see Terraform supports a number of the different methods for authenticating to Azure. First one you can see authenticating to Azure using the Azure CLI. Second you can see using managed identity. Then you can see service principal and a client certificate. Next one is service principal and a client secret. So Terraform recommended to use the service principal and manage identity. Now let's create the service principal. So here you can see the command azadsp create for rbsc. Give the name. In the placeholder service principal name you need to put your desired name, you can put here, and role should be contributor. Scope, in the scope variable you need to pass the subscription ID. So in the same format I can pass the name. I am giving the name case is SPP name, role is the contributor, and I have passed the subscription ID what I have in the Azure account. Now let's run this command. So if I run this command, here you can see it gives the output. That is the service principal we have created with this name under the contributor role and under the subscription ID what I have passed. So here it gives the application ID, display name, that is service principal, that is actually service principal ID, and display name, password, and tenant. So that is in the JSON format. Let's keep it ready. And in the next step, specify service principal credential in the environment variable. Why we are doing this? Because this environment variable values will be used by the Terraform during the authentication process. So these are the environment variable, and where this environment variable will be added, this will be added inside the base RC file that is under your Azure account. So take this template. Here it asking the subscription ID, tenant ID, ARM client ID, ARM client secret. So whatever we have created from here, you can take from here. This is the service principal ID, and this is the tenant ID. You can, and the secret is the password. Client ID is the service principal ID, API ID. So let me put all this value. After placing this value, copy all this variable and run into the Cloud Shell. Once you run this, once you execute all this thing, that would be added into the Azure CLI. Why? Either you can stop, close, and relaunch it, or you can do one thing. You can use the base HRC command. Here actually we are specifying service principal credential in environment variables. So once you run this command here, that will be saved into the base HRC file. Now we can verify environment variables values. This is the grep command. We can print. We have the new environment variables. Now you can see here, run this command. and all are listed here. So we are good. We can proceed to perform the Terraform operations. That's it in this video. I will see you in the next video where we will create the resources using the Terraform. Till then, happy learning.